Hello, everybody. I just need to zoom in a little bit. Yeah, okay, perfect. So, hello and welcome. Good evening, you beautiful miracles all around the globe. I want to say a warm welcome to everybody, to you guys, and also to you guys on Instagram. I know you have to compromise this week a little bit with me, but next week it'll be a little bit better for you guys so that you can see me directly again. But it's not just about seeing me, it's all about the contents, right? So that's what we're talking about. Okay, so that was the notification that I am live. Okay, let me turn that off. I hope I can turn that off. Okay. Thank you guys very much for bearing with me. And let me know in the comments whether you can hear me properly or not so that the microphone is working. All right. So, what are we going to do today? I have the fifth part of reinventing organizations for you guys. So we are still not done with that topic, and but I can tell you that much: it's the second last chapter that we're going to take a look at, and it is about breakthrough number 3, the evolutionary purpose. And for everybody, any sort or any of the videos that I've done before, so basically, this book is talking about the way how management styles are changing, and that we're currently in a very interesting phase because we can still shape the future of work. I mean, we can always do that, but right now we are in a stage that we can influence a lot with regards to new work, the future of work, and we basically can create the life at work how we desire it to be. And what this author is doing basically, the author of this book is called Frederic Laloux, and he has explained different stages so that we are or that the way how we are working has evolved over time in different stages, different leaps, basically. And I just want to show you again what the leaps look like. So for you guys up here, can you see that properly? So that's basically what you can look at. So we are starting with the red stage, which is very impulsive. Then it's amber, then it's orange, then it's green, and now we are in teal. And here you go again for Instagram. So it's red, amber, orange, green, and then teal. And we are currently in the stage of teal where we can shape the future of our work lives. And we are spending so much time at our workplaces, like I think like never before. And that's why it's very important for us to take a look at this topic. And this book is very close to my heart. The first time I read it was in 2017, I think, when a former classmate of mine recommended it to me. And since then, I mean, I've always been interested in new work and the future of work, but this book is describing my ideal world of how we should work, or how we can actually shape the future of our work life. And it's also very close to my heart, that topic. So whenever I go into a company, I would recommend to read that book. And it needs to start at the top. So you need to give this book to a CEO or recommend it to a CEO. If you're not much into reading, then obviously you can probably also, and I haven't checked that, but I will, you can order an audiobook or get somebody to read it to you, or just simply watch my lives on that, my live streams, and then you will get an idea what this book is actually talking about. And I especially like this version with illustrations because it not just contains a lot of research and quotes and quotation marks and surveys and so on, but it also contains a lot of images that help us to understand better what this book is all about and what the research is all about. So every stage in our evolution of work life has different breakthroughs. Yeah, so it's not that one of the stages is very bad. It's just that we are evolving over time and developing ourselves and just simply focusing on other on other aspects of our work life that we're interested in. So again, let me know in the comments whether you can hear me. I think that the microphone is on, not that I have to do it again. So for example, in the red stage, which was very impulsive, we had the division of labor and top-down authority, which was a breakthrough compared to the Stone Age, basically. Then there was Ember with the traditional management style that introduced replicable processes and stable organization charts. Then we moved on to the orange stage, and a lot of companies nowadays are still in the orange stage, but they also had breakthroughs such as innovation, accountability, and meritocracy. And then we had the green stage, which was viewed as the pluralist worldview, and the breakthroughs were empowerment, values-driven culture, and stakeholder value. And now we are in teal, which brings 3 breakthroughs, and we already talked about self-management and wholeness in the last 2 chapters. And now it is all about, let me take a look. Now I lost my page. No, we are here. I know that. Now it's all about, bear with me one second, evolutionary purpose. That's what it's about. And I'm going to read the most interesting parts that I actually find most interesting. And you can let me know in the comments how you want to shape the future of work, how you think your new work should look like, and how your workplace should look like, how you imagine your work to be. And maybe you have realized that there are, or maybe you are currently watching the news or also seeing debates on LinkedIn where people are discussing the controversy about working from home. So that there are a couple of employers that are well known and have a well known brand that are forcing their staff to come back to the offices. I remember that one of the previous companies where I worked in, they tried to implement that again in September, and then the numbers of COVID increased again, and they had to cancel this approach again. So everybody was going back home, and I think now I have to check again, but I think now they have this hybrid system of you can go to work, you can go to the office or stay at home. And the debate basically is all about whether employers should force their employees to go back to the offices, and that there were lots and lots of employees actually that decided to strike and stay at home, no matter what the consequences were. And here it is very important for the employers to listen carefully to the employers, because without the employees, how are they going to produce whatever they are producing or offering the services that they're offering? So this breakthrough number 3, the evolutionary purpose, asks 2 questions. What if we stop trying to force the future into existence? And what if instead we simply dance with what wants to emerge? Sounds a little bit weird, and I know in part 4 it was already a little bit spiritual, maybe too spiritual for some of you guys, but that's basically an aspect of this evolutionary stage that we can look at. And obviously, as I said, it's not always 100% black or 100% white. There will always be links between the different stages. Now, what Orange is thinking about these teal organizations is basically that they are always cynical about the developments that are going on. So they would probably say our purpose that will motivate everyone to peak performance is to selflessly serve our customers in order to rake in fat profits, or competitors will crush us. And that's basically what Orange says. That's what the Orange management style says. And here is one part that is so basically they are making fun of that approach. They don't believe in that, right? So one part is most important to this teal evolutionary stage is basically to selflessly serve our customers. Yeah. And you will see in the different examples that I'm sharing with you that that's actually the way to go, that is the approach. Um, Not so much focused on profit, 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 higher, bigger, more, but focusing on what it is that makes us all whole and makes us happy. So it has become standard practice. I will start reading now. It has become standard practice in almost all organizations to formulate a mission statement. You probably know that, right? It's also something that I normally recommend during the job interview preparation, that you take a look at the vision statement and the mission statement so that you are prepared in case they ask during the job interview, that you know about that. And so this mission statement provides employees with inspiration and guidance. And yet we've come to feel that most of them ring hollow because in practice they don't drive behavior or decisions. Executives, at least in the author's experience, don't pause in a heated debate to turn to the company's mission statement for guidance, asking, what does our purpose require us to do? So, if the collective purpose isn't what drives decision making, what does? Almost always, it is the self preservation of the organization. The fear based nature of the ego in red, amber, orange, and even green predisposes leaders and employees to see the world as a dangerous place with competitors everywhere trying to steal their lunch. And now just think about that. Think about that statement. We are basically held in a status of fear. Is that actually a status where we can strive? I don't believe so. Yeah. And you can transfer this concept to other parts of our lives. It's not just our work life, it's also our private life, our health life, the health system in general, right? So just think about that. Can you act if you are afraid of something? You might, but not as good as you could if you were not afraid. The only way to ensure survival is to seize every opportunity to make more profits and to gain market share before competitors do. In the heat of the battle, who has time to think about purpose? Sadly, this fixation on competition plays out even in organizations that are somewhat shielded from competition. For example, in military, public schools, and government agencies. Yeah, so normally they don't have any competition. However, this is still lived, like this fear and this making more profit, gaining more market share, and just keeping up the battle. Basically, that's what is lived. The fearful ego still seeks safety, but this time in internal battles. Managers fight for their self preservation of their units in turf wars with other units to secure more resources or get more recognition. And I can totally back this up because that's what I've seen in previous companies where I've worked. I mean, you can take a look at my CV, at my resume. I've worked in several companies, so I won't say which one I mean, but I've seen that before, and it's basically like that. The department gets a number of money that they are allowed to spend. Yeah. So, and now I'm just thinking about, okay, what happens if we need more money? Or and the department is always striving to minimize their costs and just stick within the budget. I remember colleagues of mine wanted to have a pay rise or wanted to have a promotion. It was simply not possible because of that hurdle of the allocated amount for that particular department. With the transition to evolutionary teal, people learn to tame the fears of their egos. This process makes room for exploring deeper questions of meaning and purpose, both individually and collectively. So we can ask questions such as, what is my calling? And what is truly worth achieving? Yeah, is it truly worth achieving higher profits or the well being of the customers and the employees? Now, in this book, it's always talked about the example of Birdsong, which is a company of several nurses, and the nurses have built teams, and they are helping elderly people to get more autonomy. They are based in the Netherlands, and they are an employer with a high reputation. More than 900 people are working with them, and a lot of nurses are applying to get a job with them. So if Birdswalk were to think like everyone else, like the orange or red or amber styled management companies, they would try to make this their big secret, like Coca-Cola with its formula, for example. Instead, here is what Joost de Blok did, and Joost de Blok is the CEO or the founder of Birdswalk. He wrote a book explaining Birdswalk's method in great detail, and then he sent a copy to all his competitors. His goal is for patients to live rich and autonomous lives. Whether Birdswalk ends up with 20, 50, or 80% market share is not that important. Just think about that. Yeah. For him, it is more important that the health and autonomy of elderly people increases rather than him having or his company having a higher market share. And that is something that can be seen throughout history as well. So in 1959, there was a Volvo engineer called, or his name was Niels Bohlin, and he was the inventor of the seatbelt. And Volvo had the patent for the seatbelt, the three-pointed seatbelt that we have nowadays, but they they shared it with everybody, with every other competitor, because they wanted to make the streets more secure, more safe for everybody. Now think about that. The overall goal or the overarching achievement was basically more security on our streets. So it wasn't about market share. They could have gained lots and lots of and millions of dollars or just money in general, euros, whatever you want to call it. They could have gained lots and lots more money if they were to stick to their patent. But there would have probably been competitors who would have not used the three-point seatbelt, and hence the safety on the roads wouldn't have been improved like they did since 1959. And that is what we're looking for. Like the overall goal for other for the entirety of our humanity. Yeah. So Joost accepts all invitations from competitors to give a talk. Many of them want to understand how Birdswalk attracts all their nurses and clients. Obviously, like with regards to employer branding, Birdswalk is like up the top and everybody wants to work there, and also for their clients, right? And that's why they are so successful, and every other competitor wants to know how that works. So I think that's very they are going out of their way in order to inform others about their method. Two competitors are adopting Birdswalk's methods, and yours and a colleague have been doing consulting work for them. So far, they have never asked to be paid. Imagine this: a CEO actively coaching a direct competitor for free. Sounds out of that world, right? Yeah, it doesn't sound possible, but it is. It is. They are living that. At some point in this research, the author Frederic Laloux noticed something striking. Almost never was the word competition mentioned. So orange organizations are obsessed with competition, but here the very notion of competition seems to have vanished. Where has it gone? The answer is surprisingly straightforward. When an organization truly has a noble purpose, there is no competition. Anybody who can help to achieve the purpose on a wider scale or more quickly is a friend, an ally, not a competitor. Just imagine that. It sounds like a dreamland, doesn't it? The notion of evolutionary purpose stands for more than a noble purpose, though. It means that the organization listens and dances with that purpose. Today's Yeah, today's management is predicated on the desire to predict and control the future. A whole arsenal of practices supporting predict and control is now considered essential to any well run firm, such as strategic planning, midterm planning, yearly budget cycles, KPIs, balanced scorecards, smart targets, incentive schemes, and so forth. This fits the metaphor of the organization as a machine. A machine needs to have a boss who programs the machine, who tells it what to do. Or simply, like a sailboat, there is someone like the captain who needs to chart the course and then ensure that the crew sets the sail in the right direction. So, with this research, um, this is how things are. When the author started the research, this is how he saw things too: strategy and execution. How else could this be? Founders and CEOs of organizations such as Birdsong, Favi, or RHD no longer believe in predict and control. Sounds interesting, doesn't it? They tend to see the organization not as a machine, but as a living organism that has its own energy, its own sense of direction, its own purpose to manifest in the world. The role of leaders becomes much simpler. Rather than trying to predict and force a future into existence, they simply can listen to where the organization naturally wants to go and then help the organization get there. When we do this, we always sail with the wind at our back. What do you say about that? Okay, so I will take a look at whether. Okay, there are no people here, which is fine. Okay, so just imagine that. Yeah. It basically moves from predict and control to sense and respond. At Favi, for example, which is an automotive company, they use another metaphor to illustrate the switch from predict and control to sense and respond. Traditional companies, they say, look 5 years ahead and plan for the next year. We try to operate like farmers. We look 20 years ahead and plan for the next day. Now, those are time spans that are really weird. So, agile programming is what they go for. In many cases, the processes are radically simplified and sometimes they are no longer needed at all. None of the 12 organizations that have been researched in this book, and I've mentioned them, I think, in part two. So, if you are more interested in more examples, go back to that one. So none of these 12 organizations has a strategic document, a strategic plan for the next 3 or 5 years. That sounds crazy. Every business school tells us that strategy is the alpha and the omega of success. But then again, think about it. Wouldn't it be much more powerful if an organization constantly listened to new opportunities and adapted accordingly instead of doing a big strategic exercise every few years and sticking to the plan in the meantime? Let me know what you think. So, how does an organization continuously iterate on its strategy? There are a number of processes it can use. The simplest one is do nothing special. Okay. Let self management work its magic. And self management was one of those breakthroughs that was described in part three of the book. There is a new vocabulary that often comes up with teal pioneers. It's sensing. With self management, everybody can be a sensor and initiate changes. Just as in a living organism, every cell senses its environment and can alert the organism to the need for change. We human beings are remarkable sensors. It's only that in traditional organizations, most of this sensing is filtered out because only the signals that make it to the very top are acted upon. Okay, so a beautiful illustration again here, as you can see. Let's see whether the camera can catch it. Yeah. Okay, so here you can see people that are striving, and here for you guys, striving organisms. The simplest way to do sense and respond, let it happen. So There is another example that I want to share with you guys that is mentioned in the book, but I don't want to read it out. So basically, with Birdsong, there were two nurses that came across a problem. So basically, there was a hurdle. They saw that there were a lot of patients because the nurses are taking care of elderly people, and they saw that they have to act with regards to prevention. There are a lot of hip injuries happening to elderly people, and you probably have heard that. And hip injuries in general are not a big issue with regards to surgery. So it's a routine practice. However, not everybody is recovering from that hip surgery well. And that's why they wanted to make sure that the elderly people are getting some sort of knowledge and training on how they can prevent to get a hip injury. So they work together. So these two nurses were creative and got into a partnership with a local physiotherapist and an occupational therapist. And then they went and gave them courses and showed them what they can do in order to prevent those hip injuries. And then these two nurses that were working with Birdsong thought, this is a really good idea. We need to share that with the entire company. So this should be implemented company wide. Now, with traditional companies, conservative companies, it would be like, okay, you have to pitch that to the CEO. The CEO needs to make a decision and so on. But here with Joost de Blok, who is the CEO of Birdsong, he made a simple suggestion. Why don't you write a short and catchy story about what you've done and publish it? On our internal social network. Let's see how it resonates with other teams, and if you can, package your approach so other teams can quickly copy it. Yeah, so that was basically his approach. And that is what makes management even simpler, because it's not in his responsibility anymore. He doesn't have to care about that. The entire company can come up with an idea. Many other teams thought this was brilliant, and it wasn't too long before half the teams became, as it's now called, a Birdsong Plus team. So Birdsong Plus prevention. Here is the fascinating thing. No one person formally made the decision for Birdsong to go into prevention. The organization's own energy moved in this direction. And this is how you basically sense that there is a need for something, and then you adjust accordingly, like a living ecosystem. Um, this is how nature has worked for millions of years. Innovation doesn't happen centrally according to plan, but at the edges all the time, when some organism senses a change in the environment and experiments to find a response. Some attempts fail to catch on, others rapidly spread to all corners of the ecosystem. Reality is the ultimate referee. So, more structured ways to listen. Um, yeah, in self managing organizations, a lot of listening to purpose happens simply through people sensing what's needed and using the advice process to make it happen. More structured ways to listen can be baked into daily life, though. So it's not just that you are listening at some point, but you implement listening in your daily life. And that is actually what I think is revolutionary, because people want to be listened to, right? Everybody wants to be heard, everybody wants to feel heard. And if you do that at your workplace, you can make sure that you bring your whole personality to the stage. So there is some organizations use a very simple technique. In every meeting, people make sure there is an empty chair that represents the organization and its purpose. Anybody participating in the meeting can at any time change seats to listen to the organization and become its voice. So another picture for you guys that I like very much. This one here. Yeah. So this guy is taking the seat of the organization. For you guys here as well, the guy is taking the seat of the organization. So, and the guy says, have the decisions and the discussions served me, the organization, well? How do I feel at the end of this meeting? So, how do I, the organization, feel? And this is also a new approach, right? Seeing the organization as an individual system. And what stands out for me from today's meeting? What's missing? Now, there are also other theories or approaches mentioned in this book that help with regards to listening. So, for example, Otto Scharmer's theory U, or the appreciative inquiry, open space, future search, or the World Cafe. Maybe you've heard of some of those methods. If you haven't and you're more interested in that, let me know in the comments, and then I will make another video on these approaches, on these methods. So, should we ban strategic thinking then? No, it would be stupid that we never do strategic thinking. The organization, however, should simply resist casting the outcome in stone. Okay? So, and now let's take a look. Finally, budgets. How about budgets? Are those still needed? Many traditional organizations go through a painful budgeting cycle every year. And that's something that I've explained earlier, right? With the example where the company makes revenue, cost, and profit predictions for the next 12 months. Frontline managers try to keep the numbers as low as possible, since they know that every month they will be asked to justify any shortfall. And I see that on a daily basis with people that I'm talking to, and it feels like my stomach is twisting when I hear that. Yeah, because you are basically treated not as a human being, but like a machine. And top managers want them as high as possible to keep the pressure on. Often, after tedious back and forth, some numbers are agreed upon that no one really trusts. The whole exercise is pretty meaningless anyway, when you come to think of it. For some reason, in a few months' time, business will turn out to be much easier or much more difficult than expected. And so, who can really tell if a manager that delivers 5% below or above targets has done a good or a bad job? Just think about inflation, or just a competitor has a scandal, or margins are being squeezed through raw material prices that are being increased, that are increasing, right? All of these things, they are not in our control. These processes are mostly meaningless and dispiriting. A more insidious consequence is that they fix our attention on making the numbers. So they fix our attention on making the numbers and distract us from sensing what's needed and possible. And that's it. We are kept in this fear, we are kept in this hamster wheel, and distracted with the numbers. Yeah, have you reached all the numbers that you were supposed to reach this week, this month, this year, this quarter, and so on? But it's taking away our attention from what actually is important to us, to all of us, to the people on this planet. If budgets are so problematic, are they still needed in a world of sense and respond? Many organizations that were researched don't make any budgets. That sounds really crazy, but I like it. Others do very simple budgets when an important decision needs some prediction for the future, for example. Say your company wants to cover raw material contracts in advance. Then, of course, you need to make your best estimate of the volumes you think you will purchase. In this case, all the units, like the units that are working together, like the units of the nurses or the units working at Favi, for example, in units. Yeah, in this case, all the units are asked to submit the numbers that are added up, and that is the budget. Once the decision is made, everyone forgets about the budget. Budgets are not used to monitor performance, and that's the key here. They are not used for performance, because nowadays they still are. And that's why you are so afraid to go into the management meeting or into the employee performance review once a year, or how often you have that, because your performance is being monitored according to budget. In the evolutionary teal stage, it's not monitored anymore. Organizations drop the painful discussions where managers are called in to justify why they didn't make the numbers. Okay. So, and there's Favi again, so the automotive company that has a proactive internal mantra to explain their perspective on budgets. And I am sharing that with you guys now. Our goal is to be profitable, not knowing how, instead of losing money, knowing exactly why. Think about that. I'll say it again. Our goal is to be profitable, not knowing how, instead of losing money, knowing exactly why. Okay, so now the orange, amber, red, and even green companies are, yeah, out of control. They are like thinking that's crazy. We can't do that. But then, don't people have targets? Well, no. None of the 12 organizations that were researched has any form of top down targets. In some organizations, like Morningstar, for example, people set their own targets, like a jogger might do to spur himself on. Yeah, so like you have personal goals, personal things you want to achieve, personal targets, but not from top down, not from the CEO. Think of it. If you work in an organization where you have the power to make things happen, where you can bring all of who you are to work, where you serve some noble purpose, do you really need a carrot to do good work? I don't think so. It's intrinsic motivation again. If someone isn't motivated, the problem is not an absence of targets. Something is causing that work not to be stimulating for that person. That is the problem that needs fixing. Simply adding targets won't do it. And that is something where we bring in more humanity in the companies, because we take a look at why is that person not motivated anymore. It is that the task or the workplace is not stimulating for that person anymore, and that's what needs to be fixed, not more targets or different targets. So as you can see, I'm very enthusiastic about this book, and that's basically everything that I wanted to share with you guys today. And in the next part we will take a look at the final part of the book. So, and it's called So How Do We Get There? How do we actually get there? How do we get to that evolutionary teal stage? And yeah, thank you very much for spending your evening with me, guys. If you have any questions, feel free to pop them in the comments below. And I want to know how you want the future of work to look like. Let me know. What do you want to see? What do you need in order to strive at your workplace? That's what I want to know. So, thank you very much and have a good evening. I'll see you guys very soon. Bye bye.